obviously Rudy was um, on ban and basically running interference for the fact that the Jan 6 committee aired footage of him and his testimony where he's like, just give me the ballots, I'll prove that they were all the. Everybody's like, the inebriated Rudy Giuliani giving Trump advice on election night. He was drunk in his testimony. I can't wait to see more of that stuff. But his take, and I'm sure there's an ad here. Sorry. The truth nobody is telling about the U.S. economy. What? That it's supply shock and it's not true inflation and we're headed towards a liquidity and deflation crisis? Never mind.
Let's go to Rudy.
Let's not.
Rudy, they started an hour late. You got Liz Cheney up there pontificating.
They started an hour late because one of the witnesses' wives had a baby.
If you had the opportunity, it would take you probably a day, right, to go through all the.
I'm sorry. He just looks like Grandpa's still dialing in on Facebook. Hello?
Different states. And we got Christine Caramo in Michigan on. She's coming up next. We got Fincham. We got Marchant. We got Mastriano. We got everybody in East. Give me the highlights, Rudy.
Yeah, just wrap it up. Put it in a sweet little.
The highlights in Pennsylvania are twofold.
Twofold. Okay, two things. Pennsylvania. Here we go. Twofold. One, black people. Two,
767,000 ballots counted in Philadelphia, in the most crooked city in the United States. A guy just went to jail for election fraud 2 days ago. 700.
Did he now? For a local race?
6 ballots were counted without a Republican getting a chance to observe the ballots.
Bullshit. There were one of each, and the Republicans wanted a bunch of their people in there also doubling up and tripling up, and like they were all crowding like fucking fish in a tank. No.
Now, this becomes particularly acute when you think that Trump was ahead by 750,000. This narrowed his lead to about 100,000, and then they kept counting for 2 more days.
Yeah, that's the problem with votes is when people count them.
In all of that time, a Republican never got to look at a piece of paper.
Bullshit.
Unheard of in counting absentee ballots.
Still to this day.
The law requires they be observed.
They were.
Now, why would they shut out Republicans from 760,000 ballots?
They didn't.
Because the paper was inadequate.
Well, inadequate. I wouldn't say that about paper made in China out of panda jizz and bamboo. Come on.
The paper was obviously pre-produced.
Yes. Obviously, this is not freshly made paper.
Some of it signed by a machine.
Signed by a machine. They had a signature machine. Laszlo Holyfeld was behind the entire thing. Thanks, Jonathan.
Some of it with no other ballots on it. And the net result was, of that vote, Biden got something like 98%.
Of a hugely democratically leaning district. What are the odds?
So, clear evidence of fraud in other.
No, not clear evidence.
Elections, those votes would all be taken out.
Bullshit.
And Trump would have won, just based on Philadelphia.
No. Also, they canvassed, they recounted, all those votes count. What they're saying is that they create this artificial idea that because these extra Republicans that were trying to bully their way into these areas, and those people said, I wanted to be an election observer and I wasn't allowed in there, the inference they allow to be made is that no one was in there. There were people already in there. We've covered this.
By the way, to the tune of 7,000 additional votes in Pittsburgh. And then.
Yeah, 7,000 though. That's.
We go to 2,000 mules as separate corroboration.
Really? He's actually citing 2,000 mules?
They say Philadelphia was the worst of all the places they observed.
Wait a minute. They do? My goodness. And they're so serious.
More phony ballots, more drop-offs, more payoffs.
None of which they show. Not once. In 2 fucking hours.
And they have Philadelphia, Trump winning by well over 100,000. Remember.
Yeah, he was totally going to take Philadelphia. I mean, it's his kind of city.
With 65% of the vote cast, he was ahead by 800,000. And we had scientists ready to testify.
Scientists?
That it was impossible.
Huh.
Absolutely impossible to change that vote.
Well, no. With 600,000 votes cast, with 65% cast, he was at 800,000 ahead. That's true if you were talking about rural counties in Pennsylvania. But we're not. We're talking about the two biggest population centers where 80% of their vote was yet to be counted. Which, again, watch when people give you a percentage versus a baseline number. This is the oldest fucking bait and switch.
Without cheating. Well, they cheated, and there's multiple proof of it. And 2,000
No, there isn't.
mules puts the icing on the cake.
No, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, it leaves the cake out in the rain, and I don't think that I can make it because it took too long to bake it, and I'll never see that recipe again. Oh no!
Same thing in Georgia. In Georgia, you have a film that you can look at.
But don't look at all of it.
Which they falsely claim that I doctored, which I never touched, never saw, never had anything to do with until it was played. But they didn't know that. They just lied about it.
No, they didn't. You only played a segment of it in your testimony. They didn't say it was doctored. It was saying that they said specifically you took that out of context and removed the contextual video from it to make you take a piece and make it look incendiary. Now, that is precisely what you're doing, except in a more ham-handed, dumb way.
That film alone shows.
Yeah, it's not film, too. It's video. Good point.
120,000 ballots that were being counted illegally. They deliberately threw out all of the inspectors, created a phony water main break, which
that's the next day, not even the same time frame.
It's been proven to be phony. And we have independent video of that.
No, you don't.
And Raffensperger claims he sent somebody there. He never did. And people should know that Raffensperger also had a report.
Raffensperger?
6 days into the election from his own people.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how you can trust any Republican. I mean, I think really your only recourse, Rudy, is to make sure no Republican ever gets elected in the state of Georgia ever again. Because how are you ever going to be sure that he hasn't arranged for some sort of massive, oh yeah, I believe it, massive voter fraud?
There was massive fraud in the election.
Look at that.
Every time that liar got up and said the election was perfect, his own people had told him it was one of the worst elections ever.
No, they didn't.
And they nominated him again to.
Yes. That's what they did. They told him it was one of the worst ever, and they nominated him again. Fucking hell.
Be a crooked attorney general. It's a shame. And
it is a shame. Maybe I see. So maybe the goal of all the Republicans in that state was to make it the most crooked ever. Maybe Kemp is planning on running for president, and his only way to do that is if Trump loses so that he can, oh, shit. And I have no popcorn.
He's the one who picked Dominion, by the way. Big story to that, which we'll go into at the right time.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know that Real America's Voice is being sued currently by Dominion, so anytime. Go ahead. Michigan,
you got more people voting than live, just about.
No.
Michigan, they
just about lovely.
Just closed down the center. Same thing as in all the other places. They close it down at 11 o'clock. Nobody's allowed in. At 3 in the morning, 2 garbage trucks come in with 100,000 ballots.
It takes 2 garbage trucks for 100,000 ballots? It's sheets of paper, fucko. It's like the size of a trunk.
More. There was 2 Republicans that stayed behind. They hid.
Yes, they hid.
After they were thrown out.
Okay, so they're the trustworthy ones. So let me get this straight. During an election, people are asked to leave the election facility so it can be locked down overnight until the counting will resume in the morning. And the only people we know for sure had broken the law and hung around in the facility were Republicans. And so I guess I'm going to guess that they met those garbage trucks full of Trump ballots. And helped guide them in, and then.
And one employee of Dominion who was shocked by what she saw.
Oh God, what's her name? Tina, what's her name?
And they say that those ballots, every time they heard a name, all those ballots were for Trump, and they did not appear to have come from a voting station since they came in a garbage truck.
Oh, well, here we go. Shit. Rudy Giuliani just told the story. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, you heard it right. That the two, according to Rudy Giuliani, for the record, run that by me again. 2 garbage trucks came in the middle of the night after 2 Republican operatives hung around in a center in Philadelphia.
Republicans that stayed behind.
Yeah, 2 Republicans stayed behind.
They hid after they were thrown.
They hid after they were thrown out. Illegally, they stayed in the facility.
Thrown out. And one employee of Dominion who was shocked by what she saw.
Okay, so 2 Republicans and the Dominion temp, what's her name, who they ended up on SNL, and
they say that those ballots,
every
time they heard a name, all those ballots were for Trump, and they did.
Up. Okay, stupid. Well, there's the cow. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been saying all along that in the same way that Steve Bannon fucks up every time by saying that it's, he calls it the hard drive from hell instead of the laptop from hell and blows the whole plan. That Rudy, not to be outdone by Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani has screwed the pooch and basically given away the entire thing. Now, we'll see if Bannon corrects him. He didn't certainly jump in, but yeah, this is, if Rudy accidentally told the truth. That's amazing. Yeah, toilet hooch is a mistake, especially if you're going to be on, you might need a stiff one like that to be on with Bannon. Let's run that again. Let's hear that whole clip.
At the right time. Michigan, you got more people. You got more people voting than live, just about.
Just about. I wonder where those extra ballots came from and who they could have been cast for in the election.
Michigan, they just closed down the center.
Yeah, they just closed down the center. So the Democrats closed the place down, allegedly, and everybody left except...
Same thing as in all the other places. They closed it down at 11 o'clock. Nobody's allowed in at 3 in the morning.
Nobody's allowed in at 3 in the morning.
2 garbage trucks.
2 garbage trucks show up.
Come in with 100,000 ballots or more.
With 100,000 ballots or more.
There was 2 Republicans that stayed behind.
There were 2 Republicans hiding and trespassing on election night in the center, okay, that was closed illegally. They were there.
They hid after they were thrown out.
2 Republicans, okay.
And one employee of Dominion who was shocked by what she saw.
Right.
And they say that those ballots, every time they heard a name.
Those ballots that were in that truck that arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning in a giant garbage truck while the Republican operatives hid in the building after everyone had been broomed out, where even security people could be in the building. And they looked on the ballot. Every time one of those ballots was read out loud, the name was...
All those ballots were for Trump, and they did not appear to have come from a voting station since they came in a garbage truck. And they couldn't have been mail-in ballots because they weren't folded.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So just to be clear, thanks, Rudy. Your Honor, we're going to rest right after this. Is it okay if I enter this piece of video evidence into the record on a fucking loop? Because this dum-dum Freudian slipped his way into telling the truth. Shit. So according to Rudy Giuliani, officially at this point on June 13th, Monday of 2022, Trump tried to steal the election in Michigan and it dumped over 100,000 fake ballots into the election and still lost. Okay, so we should scrape out 100,000 votes for Trump in Michigan alone.
And that put
hold.
Yeah, now Bannon's going to fix it for him. You mean Biden votes for Biden?
The ballots were for Trump or for Biden?
Oh, the ballots were in a bucket, and they were for Biden. And a lot of them.
Oh, a bucket of Biden. Get a bucket of Biden, finger licking good. Get a bucket of lying, and come on, it's good. Just with some mashed potatoes. It's a Biden bucket for you. Jesus Christ. They were in a bucket. What? So the garbage truck showed up and they just bailed them out like water? No, they weren't nothing. Shit.
You just said stop. You just said Trump. So I want to make sure we're clear because the media's all over this thing.
Well, I should have said there were no ballots for Trump. There was a whole section of about.
Yeah, you should have said that, but you didn't. Look at Bannon like this motherfucker.
22,000 ballots, none for Trump. I think
22,000. So 88,000 of them were for Trump? What the shit?
He ended up total something like 135,000 to 2,500. But these came from a garbage truck.
Yes, in a bucket. We understand.
Two garbage trucks.
They
came in the back entrance in the middle of the night.
Well, that's how you do it.
In Atlanta, we see them going under a desk. It was covered all day, throwing out all the Republicans and then counting the ballots. And again, in each of these cases, these were rotating boxes that had been there all day and were moved into position, and then they would have no way of knowing the content of those cases because they'd been moved all day. But never mind. Like at this point, we just have Rudy admitting that Trump had stolen the election in Michigan. Technology of 2,000 mules demonstrates
the technology. They have blue screens. You don't understand? Okay. They have ways of looking at they had a whole it was like blacklist.
That there were way more than enough votes so that Trump had won the state. Arizona, exactly the same thing.
Yeah, if only 100,000 or so of Trump's votes in every state hadn't been fake, which we now know because of Rudy, he would have won. Yeah. The president pinned his career on this guy, right? Oops, hold on.
Arizona still is fighting allowing people to look at the paper ballots because they know the paper ballots are phony.
Well, the Trump ones are, and it's run by Republicans, and they don't want to be caught. They helped him as much as they could, but he still lost, so they're just trying to cover their tracks. It's kind of like the manager of a bank, participated in the heist by, telling you guys like when the security guard goes on his break and where he's going to be and leaving one of the doors open and shit like that. And then the robbery happens and somebody gets killed. And then these guys get all shot up when they're leaving and a couple of them escape. And one of them meets back at his house later on and goes, "You got to help me. Otherwise I'm going to, I'm going to turn you in." And he shoots that guy and says, "This guy tried to follow me home," or whatever. That's that. I mean, it's basically that.
Our observers were too far away.
Our observers were too far away.
And they've got the Fincham and Kerry Lake are both in court on an injunction to get the machines.
Yeah, it'll work. They're going to try and stop electronic voting in the state of Arizona.
Rudy,
which, by the way, every elected Republican in Arizona should step down because obviously these machines cannot be trusted, and none of them should feel secure that their getting elected was a reflection of the will of the voter.
We got to get Bernie, get all these others.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to keep talking to you, but you keep fucking up really simple things, so I got to move on.
Secretary of State's jammed up. I know you're all over Andrew's campaign. You're traveling everywhere. What's your social media so people can follow you nonstop?
So they can follow you nonstop.
On what's happening, Andrew. The debate's tonight. We're going to be giving commentary in a pregame. I think we're going to try to get Andrew on here in the afternoon show. So, how do people follow you to follow this intense
plug anything you want
race for the Republican nomination for governor in New York?
Best way to follow me is RudyGiulianiCS.com. RudyGiulianiCS.com. I've got my podcast. My podcast today are on the films that they didn't show at the January 6th committee, including the Antifa participation in January 6th, which is documented and left out, And the single biggest violator who's...
And by the way, the Antifa guy that's documented being left out is allegedly one of the guys who was filming stuff, who like embedded himself with him and wasn't in line with like the Proud Boys and those guys, but was following along and filming. You know, he's Antifa. Like Andy No is trans.
Gone free, and the single biggest crime, which is being covered up, which is the murder of Ashli Babbitt. We show a new video of the Ashli Babbitt murder that we had, but hadn't shown in over a year.
Yes, we all saw it.
In which it is clear that she's been lifted up as a target to be shot.
You know, which never would have happened if she was blocks away and not in front of a window that was being bashed out trying to get there. Do you think they could have lifted her up and put her through there if she didn't want to be put through that window? What the fuck?
She was a threat to no one.
Yes. By the way, Rudy, if you don't mind, I would like to walk into any secure event that you or your son is having with a backpack and no one's allowed to look in it. Please tell me that at all your events, you make sure that anyone who brings a backpack in, no one checks it, because that would be a violation.
There were 8 cops around that could have subdued her, instead of murdered her. And this one guy shoots her. And John Sullivan, who is already indicted, incited a riot where a murder took place, deliberately keeps the face of the cop out of the video. It was clearly a staged video by a guy very close to Antifa.
Wow, it's amazing. Like in the middle of all that mayhem, they were able to get perfect angles.
All of that is fact. All of it ignored.
This is like somebody arguing that Zapruder was a CIA op.
By these, I would say, criminals who are running this hearing, because they're covering up a homicide in order to do the same thing they did, and that is frame Trump for something he didn't do. This is no different than Russian collusion.
It's no different than Russian collusion, which is that there's a shit ton of evidence for it, and every time they start showing the evidence, we start crying foul and calling it a hoax and bullshitting.
Every dog will have its day,
and it's Rudy's day.
Our day is going to be November 8th, and then when we take over, we're going to have a real investigation and hold people liable for what they're doing. Okay, Rudy Giuliani, thank you. Honored to have you on here. Great summary, overview.
Great summary. Oh God.
And good fight tonight with Andrew, who's been blocked because
I'm looking forward to it.
He did not take the vax, and at the last second they kick him out. They don't want Andrew Giuliani. Once he becomes governor of New York, he's firing the DA, which the New York Post called for today in their editorial over the weekend. He's firing the DA. He's going to put emergency measures over top of Adams to get control of New York City, because New York City's out of control. Let's go to
Jesus Christ. All right. By the way, most of what Rudy is constantly saying in these situations is on a loop, and they're trying to like take the evidence that has already been debunked dozens of times and hope that there's sort of a Gish Gallop like fatigue that people have with pushing back on it. And I certainly feel it. John Sullivan's the fake Antifa guy. Well, hold on. Yeah, this would be, hold on. The guy that they're talking about here is fact check, misleading claim about Antifa member at Jan 6 Capitol riot. This is the claim a known Antifa member was paid $70,000 for his video of the Capitol riot. Okay, so I don't know about the known Antifa part of it yet, but we'll see. Okay, cue a widely shared meme on Facebook featuring the office of Jim Halpern. This is a known Antifa member who was paid $70,000 for his Capitol riot video. Jan 6 reads the text in the photo, which shows Halpern, played by actor John Krasinski, pointing to a whiteboard. The FBI says they have no proof Antifa members dressed as Trump supporters caused it. Okay. The meme, posted by a Facebook page called Happy Hayride, has more than 600 shares. Similar versions of the post have amassed tens of thousands of interactions on Facebook and Instagram, according to CrowdTangle, a social media insights tool. David Shell, a conservative meme maker on Instagram, originally published the image March 5th. The post features two photos of John Sullivan, a Utah activist who shot a video inside the Capitol during the riot. Sullivan was later arrested. Court documents show news outlets paid for the listed amount, $90,000. Okay, so let's just look into him. because that's really the key. Sullivan Earl, obstruction of official proceedings, civil disorder, entering, remaining in restricted building or grounds, disorderly, disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building, aiding and abetting. He's from Utah. Initial appearance at the District of Utah, 4 p.m. So okay. And then originally posed the image, Mark Fez, Utah, who shot the video inside the thing. An old conspiracy theory. In the days immediately after thousands of Donald Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, some conservatives tried to scapegoat Antifa activists. Those claims didn't and don't stand up to scrutiny. Antifa, short for anti-fascist, refers to a loose coalition of left-wing activists who protest against white supremacy and far-right causes, sometimes using violence. Antifa is an ideology, not a single group. It has no leaders and is broken up into regional cells. In the past, Antifa activists have been wrongly blamed for murder, shootings, and even wildfires. It wasn't long after rioters breached the Capitol that some painted the attack on activists on Antifa activists as well. The conspiracy theory, which falsely claimed Antifa activists disguised as Trump supporters years ago by gaining weight and listening to nothing but Greenleewood 24 hours a day for 7 days a week. Were responsible for the Capitol riot. Traveled from fringe internet sites to the floor of Congress within hours. Social media user falsely claimed facial recognition technology proved the theory, and that a supporter for the baseless QAnon conspiracy theater picture wearing horns inside the Capitol building was actually an Antifa activist. During his March testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee, FBI Director Christopher Wray said the Bureau hadn't seen any evidence of any anarchists, violent extremists, or people subscribing to Antifa in connection with the 6th. Hundreds of videos show rioters brandishing pro-Trump, QAnon, far-right paraphernalia, hundreds of federal charging documents. Where is it? Okay, Sullivan was paid but not affiliated with Antifa. News organizations paid Sullivan tens of thousands of dollars for his footage from the Capitol riot, but he has denied any affiliation with Antifa, and federal charging documents do not suggest he's linked to the movement. Court filings show U.S. authorities ordered Sullivan to forfeit about $90,000 he made from selling footage he took in and around the Capitol on Jan 6. His video captured the death of Babbitt, a military veteran from California whom police shot as she tried to force her way through a hallway inside the Capitol. Court release video from Jan 6 riots at the U.S. Capitol building. The total included 35. Okay, that's just the money. Let's see. But Sullivan is not a known Antifa member, as Facebook claims. Court papers in his criminal case do not mention him being affiliated with any anti-fascist groups. Blah, blah, blah. PolitiFact, an independent fact-checking organization, reported in January that Sullivan's social media accounts frequently used hashtags associated with anti-fascist and Black Lives Matter activists. He described himself as a Trump opponent and a supporter of Black Lives Matter movement. But Sullivan has repeatedly denied being associated with Antifa groups, and local Black Lives Matter groups in Utah have disavowed him, accusing him of being an agent provocateur. Our rating partly false. There we go. So that's the John Sullivan story.